Should you choose the poem or the prose? This question has probably crossed your mind for English Literature Paper 1. Maybe you're more inclined towards one of them. That's perfectly normal. We'll be going over both so you can strategize which text is best suited for you. Ultimately, it really just comes down to two things. 1, your preference and ability, and 2, the exam text. Whichever you choose, you'll follow a similar process of reading, annotating, analyzing, planning, and writing. But naturally, you might find some stages easier to handle for a certain type of text. Remember, always play to your strengths. Let's first focus on poems. You might need more time reading before you start planning your commentary, because one reading usually isn't enough to fully understand the poem. If you're weaker at identifying literary techniques, you may prefer poems, as the features are more easily identifiable. For example, rhyme scheme, structure, meter, sound, and imagery. You already know that poems are not all black and white. They're more open to interpretation, which is something you may prefer. But remember, you still need to back your points with evidence. You'll also need more interpretative skills to understand the poem's abstractness and author's intent. But no worries, this can be honed by more practice. What about prose? Practicing for Paper 2 can serve as preparation for Paper 1 prose, since they're similar in form. Prose usually has an easier storyline to follow. Some things you can explore are interesting dialogue, plot lines, which you might like more than an abstract poem. Similarly, as elements such as the plot, characterization, and setting are more apparent, the thesis statement may be more easily constructed. The use of literary techniques will also be clearer to you. The prose is an extract, not a complete piece, so you might struggle with framing it into a proper context, unlike the poem, which serves as a standalone text. The prose is generally longer, and some might find it difficult to organize multiple themes and ideas within the given time frame. Now let's talk about the second deciding factor, the exam text. Quite frankly, this part is out of your control. Note that the points mentioned previously are general statements, and they don't hold true for all prose or poem extracts. For example, there are instances when prose extracts don't have a clear storyline and can jump from one time frame to another, while the poem is more straightforward with a linear chronological order. Or you may find that the literary features in the poem are harder to identify or understand than in the prose extract. But don't get thrown off your game. The key is preparing well for both the prose and the poem, as it really depends on the given text. Match your strengths to the particular text rather than always sticking to either the poem or the prose. Be familiar with the literary techniques for both forms and learn how to structure the points into a strong commentary. That way, you can have the confidence to do well in the Paper 1 exam, regardless of which you choose.